Joining me now, my friend Bryan Dean Wright, of course, CIA Ops Officer, now host of my new favorite podcast, The President's Daily Brief. I just love being able to be updated on all the news of the day in my 20-minute ride to work. That's it. Nice, consumable. I get to find out what's going on and how to think about it. Bryan, first and foremost, Joe Biden kind of upset about the various leaks with Russia and Ukraine. What's going on?
Yeah. So this is a really, really scary deal. We've got a bunch of folks in the intelligence community, that is the CIA, as well as the Pentagon, who are leaking to the press what we're doing in Ukraine, the missiles that we're sending, the targeting of very specific individuals, Russian soldiers and generals. We're taking down the Moskva, which was the biggest and most flagship of all the Russian ships in the Black Sea. The point is, we are leaking this information, that is to say, these spies and generals. Well, that's a very, very bad deal because it convinces Putin, at least conceptually, that, hey, he's not just at war with Ukraine, but in fact, the United States. And so that will in turn cause some degree of escalation, God forbid, direct nuclear conflict. So the question is, why? Why is that happening? Why are these spies and generals leaking that information? And so in the podcast this morning, I talk about three possibilities, basically around power, ideology, and money. One of the big ones, there was $14 trillion spent in Afghanistan over a 20-year period. That money is gone. So perhaps some of these folks who are leaking are really wanting a conflict because they and their friends and some of these big military industrial complex companies, they would like that revenue back, please. So that's a big, big fear that I and others in the intelligence community that I've talked to have about why these leaks are happening.
Bryan, I'm going to ask a stupid question, but you've come on the show a lot. You're used to that by now. Isn't that an act of war? And I really genuinely mean that. I'm not trying to be, dirty pacifist hippie here. But if I, the United States of America, find out where, let's say, a location of one of your generals, and I take this information and I hand it to somebody you're currently at war with, and they in turn kill that person, didn't I just commit an act of war?
Yeah, you sure did, friend. Not a stupid question. So the idea here is, it's not just what you and I might think, but in the mind of Putin and his advisors, are they going to go through some sort of technicality like, well, Joe Biden didn't actually declare war, so we're not really at war. No, they're going to say, in effect, what are they doing to this country? Yes, in fact, killing our soldiers and our generals and sinking our ships. Those are all acts of wars, so it's time to strike back.
I saw Congressman Seth Moulton. He went on TV and had this to say. I thought it was pretty revealing.
Obviously, there's a lot of politics involved, and there will be domestic debates here at home about other policies and whatnot. But at the end of the day, we've got to realize we're at war. And we're not just at war to support the Ukrainians. We're fundamentally at war, although it's somewhat through a proxy, with Russia, and it's important that we win.
Fundamentally at war with Russia. Okay, let's set aside what we've already talked about. Clearly, people in the intelligence community and Democrats in Congress are cheering for a war, but look, everything else aside, loss of life and whatnot, we can't afford a war right now, right?
Well, it would all be issued in terms of debt, and then there would be an interest rate on top of that. So we are already engaged in deficit spending. So everything that we would spend in this war would, in fact, be debt. So no, we cannot financially afford putting aside the blood aspect of kids and grandkids having to go off to war. And that deficit issue will come back to bite us, particularly if rates go up to the point where we're actually spending a substantial more than we should be on a war or its debt, rather than, the things like bridges and roads and all the things that the federal government pays for that we should be actually focused on, rather than a war in Europe. That, by the way, even the Europeans aren't really paying for right now. There was a big debate about $1 billion, or euros, I should say, that the German parliament had. So they're spending a fraction of what we are. Their own backyard, they're less concerned.
Don't miss Jesse Kelly Breaks History, Che Guevara, the latest episode of a new series available now exclusively for First TV supporters. Visit the First TV app or thefirsttv.com to subscribe and start watching today.